Welcome back. We are now going to be going into Unit 6, Section 2. This is our flip vodcast over the American Revolution. Section 2 is entitled The War Continues. The victory at Saratoga in October of 77 boosted American spirits. Even more, Saratoga marked the turning point in the war. After that point, the colonists sent Benjamin Franklin to get the support of other European countries in our fight for independence. And the two main countries he approached were France and Spain. Saratoga was a victory for the colonists. Big victory. It turned the tide of the war. And in February of 1778, France comes out on our side. France joins in. And one of the first things that France does, they declare war on England. Also, Spain is approached, and they decide to help us also. Spain took some troops and captured British forts along the Gulf Coast of the Mississippi River. They also declare war on England. So now we have two European allies now. France and Spain. And France gives us not only troops. Remember, we didn't have a navy at the time, and they had a pretty strong navy. So they send over a whole fleet of ships to battle the British. Spain contributes troops down south by attacking forts along the Mississippi River. In particular, there was a huge British fort in Mobile, Alabama, where it is located today, and they took it, cutting off a supply route that Britain would use going up the Mississippi and through the south to supply their troops. Going into that winter, however, it was tough. The British troops, under the command of General Howe, they lodge in New York City, in barns and hotels and houses. They stayed out of the cold, and it was an awful bitter winter that winter. The Continental Army, however, winters in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Like I said, it was a very harsh winter. Many of the troops did not have shoes, blankets, tents, and other things that they needed to stay warm. Many colonial soldiers deserted because of the very harsh conditions. Many of them died from disease and hunger, frostbite, hypothermia. We see this picture of here. It's a pretty solemn situation. This is General George Washington down on his knees in the snow praying that they make it through that winter. As you can see here, very cold conditions. Many of the troops resorted to taking their own leather boots, boiling them, and then eating the leather. Because in the wintertime, you see there's no foliage. There wasn't a lot of game running around. It makes it a lot more difficult to hunt and find food. Very, very brutal conditions. But the colonist spirits are uplifted when France joins the fight. And in the spring, General Washington makes an announcement to the Continental Army that France has joined and declared war on England. And that lifted the morale and helped them get through this tough time. Military help comes from overseas too. Marquis de Lafayette, he was a French soldier who come over and was actually a aide to General Washington and actually led some Continental troops in the fight. He was a brilliant general as well as a very good engineer, and he helped design much of our capital, Washington, D.C. Also joining the military fight was Baron von Steuben. He was from Germany. And he is the one that drilled the Continental soldiers during that winter. And what he was trying to do is he was trying to get the rate of fire. That means how fast a soldier can fire, reload his weapon, and fire again. He's trying to get that the soldiers to be able to fire more frequently so they can compete with the British Army. And they actually become a lot better, a lot more organized coming out of that winter due to this man right here, Baron von Steuben. We had some money problems, the colonists did. The question is, how did the colonists pay for the war? Well, they thought it was a very simple answer, was to simply print more paper money. But when you print more paper money, it loses its value. It cannot buy as much. And this led to inflation. Inflation is simply not being able to buy as much goods or services with the same amount of money. Not being able to buy as much goods and services with the same amount of money. And because we printed so much money, it became worthless, and people were not accepting our money. There was too much of it. It lost its value. On the home front, ideas were changing, and there were changing attitudes about women. Remember, in the past, colonial women had a job to help the man on the farm, to support the man. She wasn't allowed to make any decisions. She was to cook and clean and help on the farm and raise the children. But two women were influential in the changing of the attitudes about women. One was Judith Murray. She said, women should be educated just like men. They should be educated just like men. Because at this time, education wasn't valued for women. The men's the one that went all off to college, received their college degrees, were taught how to read and write. Women were to stay home and take care of the children. Abigail Adams had a big voice also. She is the wife of John Adams. And we all know that John Adams is a patriot, a founding father of our country. They helped change the way people thought about women in the colonies. She was a champion of women's rights. Now, realizing that these two women were influential, they still couldn't get women the right to vote. Women are still not allowed to vote yet. Two very influential women. Women are gaining ground, but they're not there yet. Next, we want to talk about the treatment of loyalists. We talked about two groups of colonists. There were patriots. There were colonists that were for independence and wanted to fight England for independence. And then there were loyalists, people who wanted to stay loyal to the King of England, loyal to the crown. Every state had some loyalists. There were more loyalists in the southern states than other parts of the colonies. Many loyalists fled the United States. They were treated harshly. By patriots. As you can see in this picture here, they received the same treatment that many of the tax collectors and the custom collectors received. Tar and feathering, beaten, their homes vandalized. All because they sided with England. And many fled. When I say fled, they went in a hurry back to England. The last thing that we're going to talk about in this section is the issue of equality in slavery. We had a big debate in the Declaration of Independence about the issue of slavery. whether it should be included in the Declaration of Independence, mentioning it. Many African Americans are now fighting in the Revolutionary War, and they're fighting for their freedom. They're fighting for their freedom. Both sides, England and the colonists, approached the African Americans about fighting, both guaranteeing their freedom. But still, the issue of slavery is a hot topic, and no one in the South is going to go for the abolishment of slavery. The anti-slavery movement is gaining steam in the Middle and New England colonies, though. That kind of wraps up Section 2. Section 3, we're going to continue, and we're going to talk about how the war moves from the northern states, New England, and the middle states, and the middle colonies, and moves down further south into the southern colonies, and also into the Ohio Valley area, the land won in the French and Indian War. Stay tuned for Section 3 as we talk about how the war moves west and south. Goodbye.